Chapter 1. The Encounter. The first time I met him, I thought he was just a stray dog. It was a cold winter evening, and the streets of Seoul were unusually quiet. Snowflakes fell gently, blanketing the city in a soft white glow. I had just finished my shift at the convenience store and was trudging home, my breath visible in the icy air. My life was as mundane as it could get. Wake up, work, eat, sleep, repeat. Romance? Non-existent. Adventure? Not in this lifetime. But that night, everything changed. As I turned the corner to my apartment building, I heard a low growl. Startled, I froze. My eyes darted to the alleyway, where a pair of glowing golden eyes stared back at me. It was a wolf. At least that's what I thought at first. Its fur was a mix of silver and white, shimmering under the streetlights. It was massive, far larger than any dog I'd ever seen. But what struck me the most was its gaze, intelligent, almost human. "Hey there," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Are you lost?" The wolf tilted its head, as if it understood me. Then, to my utter shock, it spoke. "I could ask you the same thing, human." I stumbled back, my heart racing. What? Did you just—" "Yes, I spoke," the wolf interrupted, its voice deep and calm. "And no, you're not hallucinating." I blinked, trying to process what was happening. Was I dreaming? Had I finally lost my mind? Before I could say anything else, the wolf stepped closer. "You're not afraid of me," it said, almost as if it were surprised. "I should be," I admitted, "but for some reason, I'm not." The wolf chuckled, a low rumbling sound that sent shivers down my spine. "Interesting. You might be the one I've been looking for." "The one you've been looking for?" I echoed, confused. Before the wolf could answer, a sudden gust of wind blew through the alley, and the creature vanished into the shadows. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, my mind racing. Who or what was that wolf? And why did it feel like my life was about to change forever? Chapter 2. The Stranger in My Apartment. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of someone rummaging through my kitchen. Groggy and disoriented, I stumbled out of bed, grabbing the nearest object, a broom, for protection. My apartment wasn't exactly Fort Knox, but I never expected someone to break in. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice shaky. A man stepped out of the kitchen holding a carton of milk. He was tall, with silver hair that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight streaming through the window. His golden eyes were eerily familiar. "Good morning," he said casually, as if he belonged there. "Who the hell are you?" I demanded, tightening my grip on the broom. The man raised an eyebrow. "You don't recognize me?" "Why would I?" I stopped mid-sentence, my eyes widening. "Wait. No. It can't be." He smirked. "Ah, so you do remember." "You're the wolf!" I exclaimed, pointing the broom at him. "Technically, I'm a werewolf," he corrected, setting the milk down on the counter. "But yes, that was me." I stared at him, my mind struggling to keep up. This has to be a dream. There's no way this is real. "Trust me, it's very real," he said, leaning against the counter. "And we need to talk." "About what?" I asked, still clutching the broom like my life depended on it. "About why I'm here," he replied, "and why you're the only one who can help me." Chapter 3. The Pact. His name was Kyle, and he was no ordinary werewolf. Over a cup of coffee, which he made himself because apparently werewolves are excellent baristas, Kale explained everything. He was the last of his kind, a lone wolf searching for a way to break a centuries-old curse. "Why me?" I asked, still trying to wrap my head around the fact that I was having coffee with a werewolf. Kyle hesitated, his golden eyes meeting mine. "Because you're special," I snorted. "Special? Me? You've got the wrong person." "I don't think so," he said, his voice serious. "There's something about you, something I can't quite explain. But I know you're the one who can help me." "And how exactly am I supposed to do that?" Kyle leaned forward, his expression intense. "By forming a pact with me." "A pact?" He nodded. "It's a bond between a werewolf and a human. It will give me the strength I need to break the curse. In return, I'll protect you with my life." I stared at him, my mind racing. This was insane, absolutely insane. But as I looked into his eyes, I felt a strange sense of trust. "What happens if I say no?" I asked. Kyle's expression darkened. "Then the curse will consume me, and I'll lose what little humanity I have left." I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. This was crazy, but something told me that Kyle was telling the truth. "Okay," I said finally. "I'll do it." Kyle smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that made my chest tighten. "Thank you." As he reached out to seal the pact, I couldn't help but wonder what I had just gotten myself into. Chapter 4: The First Test. The next few days were a whirlwind. Kyle moved into my apartment, because apparently werewolves don't have homes, and I quickly learned that living with a werewolf was anything but normal. For one, he ate like a horse. My fridge was constantly empty, and I had to make daily trips to the grocery store just to keep up with his appetite. "You're going to bankrupt me," I complained one evening as Kyle devoured an entire roast chicken. He grinned, his sharp canines glinting in the light. "Consider it payment for my protection." "Protection from what?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. As if on cue, the window shattered, and a dark figure leapt into the room. It was another werewolf, but this one was different. Its fur was jet black, and its eyes glowed red with malice. "Kyle," it growled, its voice dripping with venom. "You can't escape the curse." Kyle stood, his expression calm but deadly. "Stay behind me," he said, his voice low. I didn't need to be told twice. The fight that followed was like something out of a movie. Kyle moved with inhuman speed, his movements fluid and precise. The black wolf was strong, but Kyle was stronger. Within minutes, the intruder was defeated, retreating into the night with a snarl. "Are you okay?" Kyle asked, turning to me. I nodded, my heart still racing. "What was that?" "An enforcer of the curse," he said grimly. "They'll keep coming until we break it." I swallowed hard, realizing just how dangerous this pact was. But as I looked at Kyle, I knew I couldn't back out now. Chapter 5: The Bond Deepens. Living with Kyle was like living with a storm. Unpredictable, intense, and impossible to ignore. Over the next few weeks, I learned more about him than I ever thought I would. He wasn't just a werewolf. He was a warrior, a protector, and surprisingly, a bit of a goofball. "Why do you keep staring at me like that?" I asked one evening as we sat on the couch. Kyle smirked, his golden eyes glinting in the dim light. "You're fascinating." "Fascinating?" I scoffed. "I'm the most boring person you'll ever meet." "Not to me," he said, his voice soft. I felt my cheeks heat up and quickly looked away. Kyle had a way of saying things that made my heart race, and I wasn't sure how to handle it. But it wasn't just his words that affected me. It was the way he protected me, the way he always put himself between me and danger. Every time another enforcer came after us, Kyle fought like his life depended on it, and every time he made sure I was safe. One night, after a particularly brutal fight, I found him sitting on the balcony, staring at the moon. "Are you okay?" I asked, stepping outside. He didn't answer right away. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. "I'm tired." "Tired of what?" "Of fighting, of running, of being alone." I sat down beside him, unsure of what to say. For the first time, I saw the weight he carried, the loneliness, the pain, the fear of losing himself to the curse. "You're not alone anymore," I said softly. Kyle turned to me, his eyes filled with something I couldn't quite place. "Thank you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. In that moment, I realized something. I didn't just want to help Kyle because of the pact. I wanted to help him because I cared about him. Chapter 6. The Truth About the Curse. The next morning, Kyle finally told me the full story of the curse. "It started centuries ago," he began, his voice heavy with emotion. "My ancestors were guardians of the forest, protectors of the balance between humans and nature. But one of them, my great-grandfather, broke the sacred laws. He fell in love with a human and betrayed the pack to be with her." "What happened to them?" I asked, leaning forward. "They were cursed," Kyle said, his golden eyes darkening. "The woman was killed, and my great-grandfather was turned into a monster, a wolf that could never return to human form. The curse has been passed down through my bloodline ever since." I frowned, trying to piece everything together. "But you can still turn into a human. How is that possible?" Kyle hesitated. "Because I'm the last of my kind. The curse is weakening, but it's also growing more dangerous. If I don't break it soon, I'll lose control and become a mindless beast." I swallowed hard, the weight of his words sinking in. "And how do we break the curse?" Kyle looked at me, his expression unreadable. "We have to find the moonstone." "The moonstone?" "It's a relic of the forest, the source of the curse's power," he explained. "If we can destroy it, the curse will be broken." "Okay," I said, determination filling me. "Then let's find it." Kyle smiled, a flicker of hope in his eyes. "You're braver than you think, you know that?" I rolled my eyes. Don't get used to it. But deep down, I knew there was no turning back. Chapter 7. The Rival. Our search for the moonstone led us to the outskirts of the city, where the forest stretched for miles. It was there that we encountered him. His name was Lucian, and he was everything Kyle wasn't: arrogant, ruthless, and undeniably dangerous. "Well, well," Lucian said, stepping out from the shadows. "If it isn't the last of the Silver Wolves." Kyle tensed, his golden eyes narrowing. "Lucian." "You know him?" I asked, glancing between them. "He's a black wolf," Kyle said, his voice low. "They're the enforcers of the curse." Lucian smirked, his red eyes gleaming. "I'm more than that, Kyle. I'm your replacement." "What are you talking about?" I demanded, stepping forward. Lucian's gaze shifted to me, and I felt a chill run down my spine. "Ah, so this is the human you've bonded with. Interesting choice." "Stay away from her," Kyle growled, stepping in front of me. Lucian chuckled. "Relax, I'm not here to fight. Not yet, anyway. I just wanted to see what all the fuss was about." With that, he disappeared into the shadows, leaving us both on edge. "Who is he really?" I asked as we continued deeper into the forest. Kale's jaw tightened. "He's the one who's been hunting me. If he gets to the moonstone first, we're finished." Chapter 8. The Betrayal. As we got closer to the moonstone, the tension between Kyle and me grew. He was more distant, more guarded, and I couldn't figure out why. Then, one night, I overheard him talking to someone in the forest. "You don't understand," Kyle said, his voice filled with frustration. "I don't want to hurt her." "You don't have a choice," a familiar voice replied. It was Lucian. I stepped closer, my heart pounding. What was Kyle doing with him? "She trusts you," Lucian continued. "But if you want to break the curse, you'll have to betray her." "I know," Kyle said, his voice barely audible. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. Kyle was going to betray me. I turned and ran, tears streaming down my face. I didn't stop until I reached the edge of the forest, my chest heaving with sobs. "Why?" I whispered to myself. "Why would he do this?" Chapter 9. The Final Battle. The betrayal cut deep, but I couldn't let it stop me. If Kyle wasn't going to break the curse, I would. With Lucian hot on our trail, we finally found the Moonstone, a glowing crystal hidden in the heart of the forest. But before I could reach it, Lucian appeared, blocking my path. "Did you really think you could do this without me?" he sneered. Kyle stepped forward, his golden eyes blazing. "You're not taking it, Lucian." The fight that followed was brutal. Kyle and Lucian clashed with a ferocity I'd never seen before, their growls echoing through the forest. But as the Moonstone began to glow brighter, I realized what I had to do. "Kyle!" I shouted. "Distract him!" Kyle nodded, throwing himself at Lucian with renewed strength. I ran to the Moonstone, my heart pounding. As I reached out to touch it, a surge of energy shot through me, and I felt the bond between Kyle and me strengthen. With a final burst of power, I shattered the Moonstone, the curse breaking in a blinding flash of light. Chapter 10. A New Beginning. When the light faded, Kyle was lying on the ground, his silver hair glowing in the moonlight. "Kyle!" I cried, rushing to his side. He opened his eyes, a soft smile on his lips. "You did it." "We did it," I corrected, tears streaming down my face. The curse was broken, but it came at a cost. Kyle was no longer a werewolf, he was fully human. As we walked out of the forest together, I realized that our journey wasn't over. It was just beginning. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly alive.